shattered by light. I've seen joy break after the night. I wanna see it again. I've seen tragic and hopeless days turn to stories of amazing grace. I wanna see it again. Oh, come, Lord, like a rushing wind. We are desperate for your presence. Revive us by your Spirit within. We wanna see you again, see you again. I've seen laughter conquer the tears. I've seen strength rise to persevere. I wanna see it again. I've seen bodies ruined and frail rise up in power completely. I wanna see it again. Oh, come, Lord, like a rushing wind. We are desperate for your presence. Revive us by your Spirit within. We wanna see you again, see you again. Oh, come, Lord, like a rushing wind. We are desperate for your presence. Revive us by your Spirit within. We wanna see you again, see you again. We remember all the great things you have done. We believe that greater things are still to come. We remember all the great things you have done. We believe that greater things are still to come. We remember all the great things you have done. We believe that greater things are still to come. We remember all the great things you have done. We believe that greater things are still to come. Oh, come, Lord, like a rushing wind. We are desperate for your presence. Revive us by your Spirit within. We wanna see you again, see you again.
Hello, good morning, afternoon. My name's Sadie, and I'll be doing your announcements today. I was gonna record in the garden because I love the garden, and I went outside, got all ready, got my sun hat, and then the neighbor was being really loud. So here we are on the couch, which is clean, and here is our lovely Myanmar painting, and here we go. So first announcement is about support. So during this time when we've got a lot going on, there's different needs for folks. So we've got the Benevolence Fund, which can help you out if you need some financial assistance during this time. And in order to get access to that, you can email benevolence@oaklifechurch.com. And there's also mental health resources that we have based on the history of our meeting over Zoom and Skype and everything else, but also just this is a hard time for everyone. So if you would like help accessing mental health resources, you can reach out to leadership@oaklifechurch.com. So today we're planning on meeting WebEx, and that doesn't seem like that's going to work out for us. So while we're researching different ways to meet, we're back in YouTube, and that's okay, and we're figuring it out, and this is kind of, nobody knows what's going on, so we're just doing our best. So if you would like to join the coffee hour, which meets at 9, you can email Chris at oaklifechurch.com, and he'll get you a link to join, and that's just a hangout time where people talk about silly things or what they're eating and what their favorite, I'm just going to talk about food again, breakfast food is. I don't know, I've only joined it once. So anyway, if you want to join, it's really fun, it's nice to see people, it's nice to interact like, the good old days, and you can get that information by emailing Chris. Next announcement is that Wednesdays at noon, we've got a prayer time. So you can connect to that through either just by setting an alarm for yourself and taking a moment to ponder on life and what's going on and social justice and hard times for everyone spiritually and mentally. And you can connect through the Facebook group or through Instagram. There's links on how to participate in that too. And third Sunday, this is the third Sunday. This month we are doing East Oakland Collective. So normally third Sundays when we were meeting in person, we'd have someone come in, we'd have them talk about what they do. It's always an organization or a person or a charity or a group that has values that align with Oak Life values. This month, like I said, we're doing the East Oakland Collective, and we're going to watch a video of what they're doing. They're doing a lot of good work. They have been pre-COVID, focusing on homelessness and social justice in East Oakland specifically. So we're going to watch their video and see what they're doing during this time.
How you doing?
Hi, good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Coming to drop off or
I'm coming to pick up.
pick up? We are the East Oakland Collective, a grassroots-led organization that provides racial and economic justice in deep East Oakland for our unhoused, low to moderate income, senior, and youth residents. We have 3 focus areas: civic engagement and leadership, economic empowerment, and homelessness services and solutions. Under these focus areas, we hold a bi-monthly Feed the Hood program where 400 plus volunteers come out to help feed our most vulnerable and unhoused population. We provide zero-interest loans via our Susu Lending Circle program, where we help build generational wealth and savings through old West African traditional models. And we also provide community engagement on the most prevalent urban development projects in deep East Oakland.
The East Oakland Collective has always been on the front lines of rapid response. Even before COVID-19, we were doing this work, making sure that our people are fed and have resources and supplies. Since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, we have increased our service base. We went from providing 400 meals to now over 1,000. Not only do we serve the unhoused, but we serve seniors, disabled, those with compromised immune system. We have a great core group of volunteers who do deliveries to the unhoused as well as to our seniors who are sheltering in place.
Thank you, man. We helping out, man. We helping out, man. We appreciate this all the time, man. We're trying to feed everybody in the community,
EOC's office has turned into a distribution supply hub where we collect donations and we also make kits and bring it out to the community. What you see here, we have everything from your essential sanitation needs, hand sanitizer, as well as to non-perishable produce, as well as to hot meals provided by our very gracious restaurants, our caterers, and folks who are chefs who might need work right now and who are preparing these meals for us. All this is getting out to the community and to those in need.
click on the link below and that will direct you to their donation page. Harold, come here. Come here, little buddy. Final announcement is couch conversations. So now's the time to pause your video. But again, if the video is going to just be running with really nice, calm, relaxing music for 5 minutes, you don't actually even have to pause. You can just let it keep going, and then you don't have to fast forward at the end of those 5 minutes. Anyway, so, but if it's not gonna go, then you should pause. You can just feel it out and see what it actually looks like. Couch conversations, time to talk to your partner, a neighbor, text your mama, text your papa, call your best friend from high school who you haven't talked to in 12 years or longer or shorter, and kind of go through the questions. So it's kind of just taking a deep breath, give yourself a hug, give that person a hug, virtually or in real life, and please share how you're doing, how you're feeling, how things are going, and what comes to mind when you hear the word wilderness. Love ya. Sorry, this was really long. Sorry, not sorry. Happy Sunday.
Hi. Hello everyone. My name is Aku. I would like to say thank you to Oak Life Church. Thank you so much for your donation. Your donation will help us to pay for our debts for this roof. So after 3 years, we can have a roof for the church. So it will help to pay that for the roof fees. And also thank you for Corey and Bridges Myanmar. God bless you all, and I hope to see you again. Thank you.
Hey Oak Life, good morning, happy Sunday. Welcome, however you are joining us online with us in the moment, in the chat, or separate. Thank you for leaning into community in this time. Before we get into today's new conversation, Finding God in the Wilderness, I want to ask a question, if you wouldn't mind typing this into the chats if you're live with us. What's a place that's more than a place for you? A location that's more than just paint and walls, a place that brings up memories or has a story or meaning attached to it. What's a place that's more than a place? Well, like I said, we're doing this new series called Finding God in the Wilderness. In the biblical tradition and in many spiritual traditions, the idea of wilderness is one of the most holy and sacred contexts or terrains. It's a place of isolation and anxiety, a place of unknowns, of uncertainty, but also a place of transformation. And so for the next few weeks, we're going to be exploring those themes as we find ourselves in a season of wilderness, of desert, of isolation, with the pandemic and all that's going on in our world, with the sense of being alone, with the sense of uncertainty of how long this is going to go. I think these stories, the wilderness stories, the wilderness tradition from our sacred texts and sacred narratives can speak some meaning to us over the next season in our church. And so today we're going to kind of start that conversation. Next week, Dev is going to share and Say is going to share the week after that. And I hope you can come on this journey with us as we are in a time of isolation, a time of wilderness. May we find God with us in this time. So a quick update on Sunday services. If you've been around the conversation, you know that we've been trying to find a more interactive space. And we thought we might be doing that on WebEx, and that we learned that that's not working for us. So we're going to stay what we're doing right now, which is what we've been doing for the last couple months, and have some YouTube services and then community spaces outside of that. So coffee hour at 9 a.m. and stuff like that. And then come August, we're going to be trying something new, experimenting again. So thank you for bearing with us, for being such a resilient community, for not letting shelter in place and the challenges of technology and a small budget church keeping us from being the body of Christ. So a place that's more than a place. I asked that question, what's a place that's more than a place? Maybe read some of the comments below. I'll share for me, a place that's more than a place. I'll share a couple actually, as a way to get us into this conversation around the wilderness. So for me, there's lots of places that I can think of that are places more than just a place. So here's a few. The top left is some camps under 880 in Oakland here. And for a few years, if you've been around Oak Life for a while, you know that there was a season where we more or less adopted this camp. And there were some folks who are part of our church who were living there, and it became a sacred place for me. That place on the surface looks unappreciated and ugly, but the beauty I saw there, the sense of God I saw there, the good that I saw there will always be more than just a spot under the freeway. Fenton's Ice Cream is where my partner Allie and I, we had our first date. 924 Gilman Street in the center there. That's a punk club that I spent a lot of time growing up at in Berkeley. The Oakland Coliseum is a place that is it's like church. And then of course, the Parkway, right? A place that we probably all miss being together and has so many memories and so much meaning attached to it, so much of a story. See, there are contexts in our faith tradition and in our lives that are more than just longitude and latitude points, more than just walls or a spot on a map, but they carry something deeper and more profound and more holy, more rich. One of those places, if you haven't connected the dots in the biblical tradition, is the wilderness. And these stories are throughout the text, but one of the most prominent stories of the wilderness comes from Exodus and Numbers, the story of the people of Moses, the Israelites being freed from bondage after hundreds of years of being enslaved in Egypt in very dramatic fashion through plagues and divine intervention on a scale that is just supernatural. And they're freed from this hundreds of years of bondage, and they're fleeing the Egyptian military who's likely seeking to kill them or re-enslave them. And they come up against a body of water, the Sea of Reeds or the Red Sea, some body of water, and God shows up. And then they enter into a new terrain. So I want to read that passage as the kind of kickstart into this season, as they started their next season. This is Exodus 15, 19, 22, Exodus 15, 19 through 22. When Pharaoh's horses, chariots, and horsemen went into the sea, the Lord brought the waters of the sea back over them. But the Israelites walked through the sea on dry ground. Then Miriam, the prophet, Aaron's sister, took a timbrel in her hand, and all the women followed her with timbrels and dancing. Miriam saying, "Sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted, both horse and driver he has hurled into the sea, the waters of Mara and Elim." Then Moses led Israel from the Red Sea, and they went into the desert of Shur. That last verse, verse 22, so unassuming, but so ominous. Little did they know that they are entering into a season of wilderness wandering in the Sinai desert. The desert in biblical traditions, and in the Hebrew, it's the word midbar, and the word in the Greek, it's the word eremos. Both basically mean a place of abandonment, a place of isolation, a place of loneliness, a place of uncertainty, a place of danger, right? There's no shelter, there's no trees. It's just this endless landscape of barren dirt, of unbearing heat, where the life is sucked out of you when you're just outside. It feels the same every day, and you don't know when it's going to stop. Little did they know that they would be on this terrain for 40 years. Often they wanted to go back to Mitzrayim, to Egypt, to the tight place, the place where there was some security, but now they're in the wilderness wandering. And these moments, this narrative, is one of the most rich narratives in the biblical story. So I want to read a quote from a book that kind of hits on the head some of what the wilderness is. I have 3 things I want to share about the wilderness, 3 lessons or ideas. And the first is that this terrain is a place that strips us of our distractions. And I think the world that we're living in right now is a place that can clarify for us what is of value and what is a distraction, and can maybe reorient the trajectories of our lives a little bit. This is the invitation of the desert. Author John Chrysophagus, who wrote the book In the Heart of the Desert, sorry for the typo there, Heart of the Desert, explains it like this. The desert, eremos, literally means abandonment. It is a term from which we derive the word hermit. In the desert, you will find no one and no thing. In the desert, you can only face up to yourself and to every aspect of yourself, to your temptations, to your reality. You confront your own heart, your heart's deepest desires, without any scapegoats, without any hiding place. In the desert, it's in the desert that Jacob battled. And it's in the desert that you do battle with the unruly forces of your nature within and without. The desert, a place of abandonment, a place where we are confronted with our own stuff, a place that reveals to us our distractions, a place that strips us of our attachments. I don't know if this is true for you, but there are a lot of things that I used to do that I'm realizing maybe weren't that important. There's a lot of things in my life that I miss that I know are important. You know, for us, we had our second child, Teddy, and we went home the day before shelter in place from the NICU. So we were in a weird place before that. We're like living in the hospital for a month, and then we come home and we're in this shelter in place, this season of isolation. And it clarified for me, yeah, maybe going to the movies isn't as important as I thought it was. What is important that I'm longing for is for my parents to spend time with their grandchildren. And they really can't. Not in the same way. I think the desert brings up stuff within ourselves. It makes us realize the things that are important and the things that aren't important. The things that are distracting us from what life's really about, and the things that life might really be about. It's in the desert that our isolation, in the wilderness, that our time of being alone reminds us of what is most important in life. And so the first kind of idea of this season, the wilderness that we're all in, is that this can be an opportunity for us to be stripped of our distractions, to clarify what life's about, to be reminded of what life's really about. You know, I think in seasons of relative comfort, we get distracted easily. But in seasons of challenge, we start to have to wrestle with things. And that's scary and it's uncomfortable. And I hope that no matter what you're going through in this season, you know you're not alone. And this process can't be done without God. This is the first lesson, that in the wilderness, we're stripped of our distractions. The second thing is that in the wilderness, in this season we're in, it's actually a place where new things can be birthed. I don't know if you've noticed this, but in times of challenge or struggle, often new life emerges. Something comes up that you didn't expect to be there. Just like in culture, some of the best art and music that humans have ever created comes out of seasons of struggle and wilderness or even suffering. Thinking about technology, medicine, for instance, things like anesthesia and blood transfusions were developed in the midst of war that in the end provided health and healing to untold millions. In the biblical traditions, it's in this season, while the people of Moses are in the Sinai desert, that their culture is formed, right? You see Deuteronomy and they count, they see how many people there are and they start to develop rituals and practices and customs. And the Jewish culture is forged in the desert. I think this is a place where we're not only stripped of some things that are unimportant, but new things emerge and new life is forged. And so I know, just for myself, I know for Oak Life even, the things that like we used to think were important aren't as important, and there's new things happening, new connections happening, new life emerging. And so my question for us and for you is to kind of reflect on, like, where is there new life happening right now in this season of wilderness? I guarantee God is birthing something new in the midst of this barren landscape that we're in. This is the paradox of the wilderness. New life is emerging. Maybe it's a new friendship. Maybe it's a new hobby. Maybe it's a longing for something that you didn't have before. Maybe it's the connection to church. What new thing is being formed in you? As Jesus, the whole movement of Christianity started in the desert. This is the paradox of Christ. He was very countercultural, counterintuitive. If you're going to start a movement, you go where the people are. Well, Jesus went to the wilderness. And so may this time of isolation be for us a place where new things emerge. So the wilderness strips us of our distractions, the place where new life emerges. And finally, the wilderness is a place where God becomes our refuge like no other place. I'm going to show a picture of two landscapes that are right next to each other. A few years ago, we had the privilege, like an absolute privilege, to take a trip to Israel, to Palestine, to the ancient, to the Near East, the Levant, if you will, and we went with some of my seminary professors from my alma mater, and had the chance to travel and do some cultural learning around the plight of the Palestinian people. We studied with Palestinian Christians. We saw the injustice of what's happening. We studied, archaeology and Jewish culture, and it was just a great trip. And for a few days, we spent some time in this picture in the left, on your left. That is the beaches, I guess, of the Dead Sea, which are a region in Israel and Palestine that is the deepest place on planet Earth that is like on a continent. There's deeper places in the ocean. It is the Judean wilderness. We were in Sinai earlier. This is Judea. It is a place of absolute barrenness. It looks like there might be beaches there, but there aren't. That water is so salty, no life can sustain in it. And it is hot. So it's this barren alien landscape that's just so horrible in a sense. It's so deserted and lonely. And as we were in a group, I like to watch groups and stuff and see how people interact. And as we were there spending some time outside, going to a couple archaeological sites, I watched our group just be exhausted. Like, to be outside in that space, it's drains the life out of you. And I think when I think about visual landscapes that parallel the season we're in, like the last few weeks in the pandemic for me have become kind of like Groundhog's Day. Like, I don't know what day it is, and that's just doing the same thing every day. And I feel the life being drained from me. Just on the west side of the Dead Sea is an area called Ein Gedi. That's the picture on the right. It's very close to the Dead Sea. It's a small little dot within this vast, barren emptiness, and it's a natural spring. And that waterfall, that area, is traditionally called David's Waterfall. And this is a place where tradition holds that David escaped to, where David found refuge when he was fleeing from Saul. So in the midst of this giant, massive, barren wilderness, the desert, in the midst of this isolation and running for his life, he hid out in this beautiful spot. Our group went to this place, and as we walked into the canyon and found the waterfall and started swimming, like life came back to us. Like we were giggly. We were all these adults, like seminary geeks, professors, theological geeks, and we were like goofing around. And there's something that happens when we find a refuge. Like there was life being poured back into us. And I think this image is important because I guarantee that we each have a refuge in the midst of this barren landscape. There are things that give us a little bit of joy, give us a little bit of hope. It might just be a dot on the map in this massive space that we're in. But I think that we need to protect those things. If you read the Psalms, right, which is one of the books that I'm reading right now, and it's one of the few things I can really engage with biblically on my personal life. And when I read them in this time, there's this word that keeps coming up, and it's the word refuge. The author, traditionally often David, describes God as a refuge. It was in Ein Gedi that he hid out in a cave while Saul almost killed him. And I love this description because what it does, it's not just like a description for God, it kind of becomes God's name. Refuge. God is our refuge. You know, in times where things are going well, we don't really realize we need God. But then in times like this, I think what is revealed to us in a way is that, man, we need God. We need a refuge. And so what are the things in your life right now that are a glimmer of a refuge? Maybe it's a song you listen to, a friendship, a text thread that you have, this place that gives you a little bit of life, a little bit of hope, a little bit of joy. David saw Ein Gedi as a gift from God. You are my refuge. What if those things that are giving us a little bit of refuge, a little bit of protection and safety and joy and new life, those are the gifts of God to us in this moment? Right? There is a barren wilderness outside. There's a barren landscape, unknowns in terms of how long the pandemic's going to go, what life is going to look like. But there are these little glimmers, these little moments of hope and joy and refreshment and restoration and happiness, and a chance to cool off and drink some water after being outside in the desert for so long. What is your thing? What is your place? What is your person? I would invite you to see that as God, as a gift from God to you in this time. In closing, kind of highlighted three things the wilderness is. The wilderness strips us of our distractions, which is an opportunity to be transformed towards love. It's a space where new things emerge. And the question for us is, what new things are emerging? Are we paying attention to those? Are we cultivating those things? And third, the wilderness is where God becomes our refuge. What is your refuge in this moment? I would invite you to know that that is a gift from a God who loves you and is with you in the wilderness. Friends, I'm so grateful that we have one another in this time, that we get to be a community, that the paradox of the wilderness is that you can't go alone. And we'll be talking about that in the coming weeks. And as we explore where God is, where community is, where love is in the midst of this season, I pray that we would find it in one another. I pray that we would not avoid the transformation, the difficulties in this time, that as some of us might struggle, that others of us would be able to hold the burden and carry the weight. Or one rabbi says, if you want to get to the promised land, which is a long journey, it's a lifelong journey to get to the promised land. If you want to get there, you got to go through the wilderness. May this time be a space of transformation that pushes us forward to reflect love more, to reflect and be able to receive God's love more. And may we, day by day, begin to see the promised land emerging in our lives and in our world. Let's pray. God, we pray that we would be changed in this season, that distractions would reveal themselves, that we would be able to focus on the things that actually matter. Pray that new life would continue to emerge in us, that we would pay attention to it and cultivate it and celebrate it. And I pray that the things that are a refuge for us in this time, that we would protect those and we would receive those as a gift from you, as your presence with us. Pray for anybody in this community who is hurting or alone. I pray that they know that they're not alone, that they are in community, that they are loved by us and by you. For all these things in Christ's name. Amen. Okay, Oak Life. Love you all, and we'll see you next time.
There's an endless echoes in our soul. We hear the music ring, and though the storms may, we are holding to the rock we cling. How can we keep from singing your praise? How can we ever say no? How amazing is your love? How can we keep from shouting your name? We know we're loved by the King, and it makes our heart wanna sing. We will lift arms in the darkest night. We know our Savior lives, and we will walk with you, knowing you'll see us through. Sing the songs you give. How can we keep from singing your praise? How can we ever say no? How amazing is your love? How can we keep from shouting your name? We know we're loved by the King, and it makes our hearts wanna sing. We can sing in the troubled time, sing when we win. We can sing when we lose a step, fall down again. We can sing 'cause you picked us up, sing 'cause you're there. We can sing 'cause you hear us, Lord, when we call to you in prayer. We can sing with our last breath, sing for we know that we sing with the angels, saints around the throne.
Yo, Oak Life community, thank you so much, fam, for being with us, for worshiping with us, for entering in this space to do church, to be the church. Thank you so much to Terry for welcoming us in, Sadie and Harold for leading us through announcements. Big shout out all the way to Akko in Myanmar. Thanks, Chris, for bringing the word as always, and Young taking us home with worship through song. Very much appreciated for all those responsible for making this service happen. And thank you again for watching, tuning in, and being a part. Special bonus points if you made it through the worship night this past week. Big ups to you. Big ups to you. With that, we will close with this benediction. Hope you have an awesome rest of the day and week. That being said, God of love, who can separate us from you? Can troubles or hardships, persecution, hunger, poverty, danger, pandemics, or even death? The answer is nothing. Absolutely nothing. No matter what comes our way, we have overwhelming victory through God who loved us and gave himself up for us. May we go into the coming week with hope and joy, confident in the knowledge that your love goes with us. Be with us now as we go forth to love and serve the world, even from a distance. Continue to live, love, fight, and follow, fam. Appreciate you so much. Catch y'all next week. Peace out.